Welcome to Books and Storytime by MyBookSummary.com. Let's explore Shadows of Forgotten Memories. In a dimly lit room, a man slowly opened his eyes, feeling disoriented and frightened. The walls were stark white, and there was a bed and a chair, but he couldn't remember anything about himself. Panic surged within him as he realized he didn't know his name or how he ended up here. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood, his legs shaky beneath him. Approaching the door, he found it locked. Who am I, he thought, dread filling his heart. Just then, a door creaked open, and a figure stepped into the room, a man dressed in black with a mask obscuring his face. "Who are you?" the confused man stammered, his voice quaking with fear. The man in black simply gestured toward the bed. "Sit down," he commanded in a deep, cold voice. The terrified man complied, feeling too overwhelmed to argue. Without saying another word, the man in black exited, locking the door behind him. Left alone, the man struggled to recall any memories. Days stretched into hours, and despair weighed heavily on him. Then, suddenly, a fragment of a memory flickered in his mind. He remembered driving a car, a bright light shining ahead, and then nothingness. Determined to escape, he approached the door once more, only to hear the wailing of sirens in the distance. His heart raced. Had he done something wrong? The door burst open, revealing the man in black again, this time accompanied by police officers. "You're safe now," one officer assured him. A wave of relief washed over him as they guided him out of the room. As they drove through the darkened streets, the man attempted to piece together his fragmented memories. Who was he? Why was he taken? But every time he tried to think, pain flared in his head like a warning sign. They arrived at a small police station, where an officer led him into a quiet room. Soon after, a woman in a gray suit entered, introducing herself as Detective Miller. "We're here to help you," she said kindly, though her expression remained serious. "Can you remember anything?" He shook his head. "No, everything is a blur. All I know is, I was driving a car and there was a bright light." Detective Miller leaned in closer, writing down every word. "Do you remember where you were going?" she probed. "I think I was alone, but that light felt wrong, almost like it was pulling me in," he replied, confusion etched on his face. Just then, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. A feeling of unease washed over him, as if someone were watching from the shadows. The lights in the room flickered ominously, and a whispering sound echoed in his ears. "I need to find out what's happening," he thought, his heart racing as he stepped out into the hallway. The whispers grew louder, guiding him toward a door at the end of the hall. Before he could react, the door swung open on its own. He gasped as the figure of the man in black emerged from the darkness, his eyes glowing eerily. "Who are you?" the man stammered, backing away in terror. The figure pointed a finger at him, and the whispering intensified, filling his mind with dread. Just then, the lights went out completely. When they flickered back on, he was alone. Shaken, he returned to the room where Detective Miller had left him, slamming the door shut behind him. Just as he began to process what had just happened, she re-entered the room, looking concerned. "You look pale," she remarked. He nodded, unable to explain the fear gripping his heart. She handed him a small, worn notebook she had found in his pocket. As he flipped through the pages, the words jumped out at him, written in shaky handwriting. "Do not trust the man in black. He is not what he seems. Run." His heart raced as he shared the chilling warning with Detective Miller. "I think I'm in danger," he whispered. Her expression turned grave. "We need to get you out of here. It's not safe." Together, they hurried down the hall, the tension thick in the air. Shadows danced along the walls, as if alive, and he couldn't shake the feeling of being pursued. They reached the exit, but just as they were about to step outside, the lights flickered ominously once more. "Run," he shouted, pushing Detective Miller ahead of him. They fled into the night, cold air stinging their faces. As they made their way down the empty street, the man glanced back, noticing the shadows stretching and twisting as if reaching for them. "Who is he?" he gasped. "Why is he after me?" Detective Miller's face was tight with concern. "I've seen stories like this," she said quietly. "Shadows that take on human forms, but they're not truly human." Fear coursed through him. "Why me?" he questioned. "What does he want?" "We need to find someone who understands these shadows," she replied firmly. They continued through the darkness until they stumbled upon an old house that seemed abandoned. Detective Miller assured him it was a safe haven. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The house felt different, safe, almost comforting. They lit a fire, and as the warmth enveloped them, the man felt a flicker of hope. But his mind was still racing with questions. "Let's stay here until morning," Detective Miller suggested. "The shadows are stronger at night." He nodded, but his anxiety kept him awake. As the night wore on, he succumbed to sleep, plagued by dreams of shadows and glowing eyes. When he awoke, the first rays of dawn filled the room. Detective Miller stood watch, her expression serious. "It's morning. We need to leave now while it's light out," she urged. As they stepped outside, he couldn't shake the warning from the notebook. He knew one thing for certain. The shadows were still out there, waiting, and the quest to uncover his true identity had only just begun. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends, and let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.